You know, it's been a while since I did one of these. Quite a while, in fact. So here we go. Let's start all over again. I'm not even really sure I can remember how this is supposed to go, but we'll give it a whirl and we'll see what happens. I don't even know how to do this anymore. I'm so out of practice. So out of practice. So, my name is Eric. I am the host of this YouTube channel, the Sticks plus Twine channel. And yeah, it's been a while since I've recorded for a lot of reasons. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some of those a little bit closer to the end of this recording. But you're probably here because of the knitting, which is kind of why I started this channel in the first place. Gosh, I'm really out of practice. I'm so sorry. So let me just start by saying my name is Eric. I am recording here in my home in Toronto, and if you are a longtime viewer, you will have noticed A, that I haven't been recording for quite a while, as previously mentioned, and B, you will notice a very different background to what I had previously. So I am recording in my guest room / knitting room. Yes, I have converted my guest room into a knitting room. I might actually, closer to the end of the podcast, I might throw some pictures up. Or why not just do it right now? So if you are new and I've just popped up in your feed, my name is Eric. I am in my mid-40s and I'm a knitter. I am also the co-founder of a branding and communications agency here in Toronto, and that keeps me actually quite busy. So why is it a different location? Because we sold our last condo. We bought this one last summer, which was a right palaver. We bought this place. We ended up renovating a lot sooner than we thought we were going to, but we pretty much gutted the place we live in now and redid it. Top to bottom, literally new ceilings, new floors. Didn't change the location of any walls, but replaced the 2 bathrooms, replaced the kitchen, the whole thing. So eventually I will post some pictures and or video of what the place looks like now. It's really quite different. This used to be a kid's bedroom in a very small 2-bedroom. It's a small bedroom in a 2-bedroom condo, and yeah, gosh, I'm sweating. I'm so nervous. Why am I so nervous? I've done this a billion times. Anyway, so what are we going to talk about today? I'm going to talk about the last time I recorded, we were in the middle of doing a cowl, which I apologize. Life took some really odd turns last year, and that cowl did not work out quite the way I wanted to, but I will go through, pick out some winners, and I'll make sure that everybody who participated, who won, gets their prize. I'm really sorry about that. It literally, right around the time that we last spoke, went through an incredibly difficult year. But we'll talk about that closer to the end. I'm going to talk about some finished objects, which I am calling faux show, and some things that I'm working on currently. I've got a couple of things. I'm not going to focus too much on acquisitions anymore. I feel like there's a lot of movement away from the conspicuous consumption in the knitting world, and I'm probably no worse than anybody else, but I want to talk about projects more than just stuff that I bought, because that I'm starting to feel like that's just, it's not a humble brag, but it kind of is for me to sit here and tell you all the stuff that I bought. So I'd rather talk about stuff that I bought for a specific project and what my plans are to use those materials. So I think that's probably a better way to do this. We're going to talk a little bit about what I am working on. I'm going to talk about some of my favorite things, some of which are knitting related, some of which are not. And then I'm going to, this is, sort of your fair warning, if you're triggered by conversations or discussions around depression and or, changes in life stage. I'm trying to dance around it because I don't want to trigger anybody unnecessarily. but I will give you fair warning when that section is coming, so if you want to skip past it, you can. I also wanted to show you at the very end, I have a clip of a panel that I was invited to participate on at the Prince Edward County Fibre Festival. Leslie Snyder, who organized the event and is also the proprietress of her yarn shop in Picton, invited me to go and speak on this panel, so I'm going to add that video at the end as well. So let me cool down a bit because I'm nervous. I'm sweating, guys, because I'm so nervous. So I have some of my cold brew. Gotta love the cold brew. And then I'm also going to talk a little bit about status of Rib Magazine. So let's just get into it, shall we? Okay, I think I've calmed myself down a little bit because, let's face it, guys, this is nerve-wracking. I haven't posted anything in about a year, except for like the awesome time I spent with Sandy at her place, and we did a recording. That's Sandy from the By the Lakeside podcast, and she'll pop up again a little bit later in this recording. So let's talk about faux show. So faux show, this is where we show finished objects because it's a FO show. Anyway, so I have been in a bit of a wrap/shawl mood, I guess, lately. I did a sweater. I've done a whole bunch of things since I last recorded, but I want to sort of show you recent things. If you follow me on Instagram, you will have seen some of this for sure. But first, I want to talk about... Hi, I'm here. I did two, not just one, but two Drachenfels shawls. And there's a crease in it because it's been folded for a while, but I did two because my mom was working on this one in fact, for one of her best friends, and she did not finish it, so I took it upon myself to basically fix all of her boo-boos and redo it. So it's a good size wrap, guys. So I did this one, and then for her other best friend, I knew that she was planning on making a second one, so I picked some colors, and these are kits actually from Craftsy that they put together, and I believe it's their Highland wool, and did both of them. So I have yet to give them to them, but it's summer, and weather in Toronto has been ridiculously hot. I don't know what it is in Fahrenheit, but we've been well into the 30s for quite a while, so it's way too hot to wear these things. But I really actually liked working on them. They were a lot of fun. The colors were great. They're not colors I would ever pick for myself, he says with a laugh. But I did pick this color set, but it's for, like I said, one of my mom's best friends, and I think she'll really, really enjoy it. So I did two of those. Last time we spoke, I was also working on my Halo shawl, which is a pattern by Jared Flood. Sorry, the Drachenfels shawl is a pattern by Melanie Berg. So in case you haven't seen that, I'm sure you have, but if you haven't, that's who it is. And I also finished, and there's a big old crease in this because it sits on the back of my wingback chair. So maybe I'll just fold it that way again, just so it's easier to show. This is a pattern by Jared Flood from his Woolens book, and I got this yarn. This is Hayloft, Brooklyn Tweed Loft. I bought this yarn at the Knitters Frolic 2 years ago. Was it 2 years ago already? Yeah, it was 2 years ago already. That I just had to have it, had to make it, because it's fun and I really love the color. You know, if you're new, you will soon come to learn that I am a big fan of the Grello, and this fits because my wingback chair is gray. So this sits on the back, and it's sort of more of a household thing. It's a really nice size actually for like a lap blanket if your legs are cold or something. And I wouldn't necessarily wear a pie shawl as a shawl, just not for me, but I really like the shape of it, and it was actually really, really easy. It's believe it or not, even with all this sort of open lace work, it's actually not very challenging, but it is a lot of fun to make. So there's another faux. Then more recently, while I was at the Prince Edward County Fibre Festival, there was a sale from one of the vendors on their Jamesons, which is Shetland yarn, and their DK weight, which is exactly what I needed for this project. Oh gosh, look at I have all of these like creases in my stuff that's folded up. You can tell it's been there for a while. Yeah, maybe that's better. So this is the Copenhagen Calling Cowl by Isabel Kramer, and I did this in 2 colors of the Jameson's DK. And the 2 colors are, as I look down to it, Sholmit and Mustard. So that's the gray and the mustard. And what I love about this, it's a great big huge open thing, but you can wear it just single tour, or you can double wrap it. And now that we live down by the lake, it's going to be a lot colder come winter. So I wanted something like this that would help sort of keep me warm and cozy while waiting for public transit to get around. So that one was actually, I will say, this was a really fun pattern actually. It was quite potato chippy. The patterns are really easy, and this was actually designed as a knit night pattern, something that you could easily enough knit in social company without really worrying about it too much, but still being interesting enough to be a good knit that's not just straight garter. I actually really liked it, and I wasn't sure about the lace that I'm going to show you now. I wasn't sure about it if I was going to like it, but I actually really do. It's not overtly feminine, but I really like the project. So that's another one. Most recently, I just finished a long project, and this one, I'm not sure how I'm going to show the whole thing. I'm just going to scroll it up because I think that'll be easier. I was inspired by Sandy again of the By the Lakeside podcast, and now her own shop, to do the 2nd Avenue wrap. Hers was absolutely magical, and I decided that I needed to have one in my life. So I did. So as I said, I'm going to sort of scroll. It looks quite light and open because it's done on a 4mm needle. So it's got some really good drape to it. But it starts out with this sort of pop of blue, some stripes, big old section of eyelets, a little bit of garter ridge, more eyelets, and then some rugby stripes, and finally a little picot edge bind off. Now, I wasn't sure how I was going to like the picot bind off. It's not very guy friendly, let's say, because it can sometimes be a bit too frilly, but this is a really interesting, it's just like a little pop on the edge, so I don't mind that at all. So let's go through what the yarns are and what the colors are, and I will freely admit I don't remember what the color of this is. It's we'll get there. The blue is this wonderful deep blue color, which I will say when I blocked it did not bleed in the slightest, so yay, good for that one. That's Colorful Eclectic Dye Works. This is the Beyond the Sea color. This sort of taupe majesty is Eclipse 3, I believe, by Viola and the Moon, which, if you have not tried Emily Foden's colors and her yarn, it's stunning. I love working with it. And these little stripes are Persia, which is a Malabrigo color on their sock base. Merino Singles by La Bien-Aimée, but for the life of me, I can't find the wrapper, I can't find the color. We'll call it gold. Then the gray in the center, which is it's a really nice tonal gray. It's probably not going to come up on camera very well, but this one is Plucky Knitter. This is their feet base, and this is in flannel. This is the same Malabrigo, again, in the Persia colorway. I originally bought this to make socks for Sebastian, but I liked it better for this project. And then we get back into the flannel and the Beyond the Sea color, and finally you finish again with the this one, the Viola color. So it is a really long wrap. It's it's quite long, and you know it wraps around with a really good chunk, and you still have plenty for holding. So it's I think it's gonna be a great scarf for winter to wear. I tend to wear a lot of gray in winter for just like outerwear, so this will have some nice sort of color contrast to it. It's a good width, and it's very manageable. I found that it only got to be a bit of a slog when I got down to the rugby stripes, because it's 14 rows, change color, 14 rows, change color, 14 rows, change color. I was like, oh my god, when is this going to finish? But finish it did, and I just blocked it yesterday, so I will keep that folded up and put that away for winter. Oh, and one last one that I don't have anymore because I already gifted it, is the Featherweight cardigan by Hannah Fettig. I did do one of those as well for my friend Tanya's daughter. I'll insert a picture somewhere around here. So you can see what that looks like. That one I did in Brooklyn Tweed Loft as well, and I did that in the Thistle colorway, and it fits her perfectly. I was really kind of worried as to whether it was going to fit, because for a 12-year-old girl, she's actually quite tall, and she's quite leggy and army, and I thought, ooh, I hope this fits. But because it's a cropped pattern, and it's only 3/4 sleeves, that I figured it doesn't really matter if she grows a bit more into it. So anyway, so that's it for finished objects. Let's talk about what I'm working on next. All right, let's talk about what is currently on my needles, what I'm working on. First thing I'll show you is, a sock. Always gotta have a sock. This is just a plain vanilla sock that is from yarn that I bought on a trip to Sedona a couple of years ago, that I bought actually for Sebastian to make him some watermelon socks for summer. This is Gecko, my notes, Gecko yarns. They have a watermelon gradient set, which is already wound into two balls, so you don't have to worry about rewinding it. Comes like that. And so you start out, I decided to start out with the heel. Obviously, if you do toe up, it'll be the other direction, but I thought this would be kind of fun. I always do Fish Lips Kiss heel. I've stopped even pretending to want to do other types of heels because I have this one memorized. It's fast, it's easy, and 1 hour long episode of something, anything, and I can just sort of pop that out. So I'm really liking it. I'm finding that the yarn is really soft. It feels like it's got more than, less nylon than it actually does, because it feels really, really soft. But I think because I'm knitting it a slightly denser gauge than I would normally, because they're for Sebastian, I want him to wear them for quite a while. I don't want to, have them wear out. That the fabric feels nice and dense, and I think these are going to wear really well. I did not bother winding off like I might sometimes do with the self-striping any amount for the heel or changing the heel color or anything. I just thought I'll just go with it. So I'm kind of hoping, because I don't have a huge amount left, I should have enough left to finish the foot and the toe. I'm pretty sure I will. So always have a sock. I think that's got to be a hashtag, right? Always have a sock. Working on that. And I have just to my left here, I have a couch that has all of my stuff I'm going to show you, and I've got a little table here, so I'm going to be sort of reaching around for a bit. And I have one of my fringe field bags here is full of sock projects that are to be finished, so that if I feel like doing it, I can. But so just because people put themselves out there on a podcast doesn't mean that we're perfect knitters and we make mistakes. Case in point, this amazing sock has this really weird heel that I didn't pay attention to. I didn't count. I was just doing something else, Kitchenered the whole thing closed, and realized that's not going to work. That's not a heel. That's not a heel. So I have to rip that back out and do that all over again. So I think I remember doing that and then saying, forget it. I'll do it later. So that's what happened. I'll do it later, and I put it away. So I have a whole bag of those that I'm working on. As they get finished, I'll show you again. But in my larger bag, I wanted to show you, I have cast on yet another large project. I also realized once I unpacked all of my stash, how much stash I actually have, and it's actually quite embarrassing. I had a knit night here a couple of weeks ago, and I showed my knitter friends my stash, and it was kind of embarrassing. I have an embarrassment of riches of yarn, and so I'm taking on bigger projects that are not stash busters for just the sake of stashing, but larger scale projects that use up a lot of skeins of yarn. So the second Avian wrap was the first in that series, and now I have cast on the Starting Point shawl by Joji Locatelli as well, and it's by Joji Locatelli, and I'm actually really enjoying it. And I've almost done this chevron section, And believe it or not, guys, I cast this on Saturday or Friday, maybe Friday. And for a large project, it's zooming along. Now, you do this whole big thing, and then you do another one exactly the same, and then you match them, and you've seen them a billion times. It's huge. But it uses a lot of stash. So, here we go. I'm really, really enjoying working with the colors. I won't show you from the bottom, because it'll be too hard to sort of explain what they are. But let's start from here. So this is Hedgehog Fibres. This is a potluck that I picked up at Stephen and Penelope in Amsterdam. The little intermediary color, which doesn't really show up in any great quantity except for the very, very, very beginning. That is Indigo Dragonfly. It's the Marigold sock base, which has cashmere in it, which is lovely. My wonderful friend Ramona gave me that skein, and it's in the Don't Blink colorway, which is a Doctor Who reference, which I can't quite reach, but I do have. If you just look, okay, let me see if I can do this. There is a Funko Pop of one of the Weeping Angels, which is the reference for that particular color. So that's the second one. This color, the sort of gradated tonal blue on blue, I have to look this one up because I always forget what this color is called. Give me a sec. This one is Georgian Bay Fibre Company. And there it is. It is in the Bayfield fingering base. It's BFL, and it's a little bit thicker, but I actually like it because it gives some textural contrast as well as color contrast. This is in the Grandine Swell colorway. I don't believe that she's selling anymore, or maybe she's just doing wholesale orders now, but it's amazing. I love this base. I wish I could get more frequently. Back to the Indigo Dragonfly. This yellow, okay, so there's a story behind this yellow. I want to get the name right. This is Manos del Uruguay. It's the Alegria base in Sunflower. I bought this at the Knitter's Frolic 3 years ago, and I bought it to do a hat. I believe it was to do a hat. And I love the color, and I went to wind it up, and it was the worst wound skein of yarn I have ever had to contend with. It was all meshed in together. It looked like somebody had reskeined it really, really badly. So I had to literally wind it by hand, cut out the sections that were all tangled and twisted. They were impossible to get rid of. Rewind it again into smaller sections. Then I just put a magic knot in it because I thought, forget it, I'm not even going to worry about it. In a shawl, if I have this tiny little knot, I'm not going to worry about it. It's fine. And then rewound it again. So finally now it's actually usable and in a proper cake. So there's that. And more again of Indigo Dragonfly. And then this green one, I honestly can't even tell you where I bought it. It's Hedgehog in the Shamrock colorway, which I actually really like. And the part that I think for me makes these colors work, because this is a challenging shawl to pick colors for, I think, because if you don't really think through how they're going to work together, you can end up with a real mishmash. And this was done as a mystery shawl, so it was kind of like a mystery pattern knit along. So I feel like you could have really somehow steered yourself wrong, but at least now I've seen it, and it's well published and documented as to what colorways people have picked. But I really liked how these work together, primarily because this potluck from Hedgehog has little teeny specks of almost every other color in it, so it kind of makes everything hang together a bit. So yeah, this is going to be another big one. I'm hoping to have this done probably by the end of July, because I'm zooming through it and I'm really, really enjoying it. It's a lot of garter when you get to certain sections, but by the time you're done those bits, you move on to another color or another section, and it's really flying. So well done, Hoey. I'm really loving this pattern, and I did not lose a stitch in the holding it of it all up. So just as a word on needles, I am doing these on 4mm, which is what the pattern calls for, on Knit Pro Zings, which my new local yarn shop, which is Spin Me a Yarn in South Etobicoke, actually carries. So I have stocked up on quite a few of these. I don't mind using interchangeables for a lot of stuff, but for these kinds of things, I do like having a full separate fixed circular for them. I just find the joins on these ones are quite smooth, and I find on interchangeables sometimes not quite so smooth. And Hedgehog, I believe this is their sock yarn base, to me can be a bit splitty. It's not super tightly wound, and I find it can snag pretty quickly on a joint that's not perfect. So anyway, my 2 cents. So really enjoying that, and it is living, as all large projects for me now live in, my porter bin, which is the best thing ever. A couple of pins on there, of course, so, you know, it totes around with me. Okay, so that is it for the things that I'm working on. I'm just going to reset a little bit, and we'll talk about some of my favorite things. So one of my favorite parts of podcasts in general, and knitting podcasts as well, are when people talk about their favorite things, because I find it inspiring and helps give me some ideas to do things that are beyond just what I would normally just be drawn to. It sort of expands my horizons a little bit. So just wanted to show you a couple of mine. First thing I wanted to show you is this amazing book. This is the Vogue knitting book, the ultimate knitting book. It was sent to me as a pre-release preview copy by the publisher. And I'll tell you, I have a couple of other reference books. You'll sort of note, this is other books. Those are some of Sebastian's books. These are more home and homekeeping. These are knitting reference, and then it keeps moving, and pretty much all the rest of it is knitting. But I've gone to it a couple of times when I need to know sort of a technique. There was something that I was looking up, and I wasn't sure what to do with it. And sure enough, the way to do it was in here. I forget what it was. It doesn't really matter. It was a technique that I was unfamiliar with or hadn't done in quite a while. So I thought, oh, well, I'll just look it up in there. And it's beautifully photographed. It's got great, really clear directions and instructions on how to do pretty much everything. If you haven't picked it up yet, and obviously if you've got other knitting references that you're happy with, you don't necessarily have to have this book. Oh, something's falling out. Doesn't matter. But if you don't have a really good knitting reference and you're sort of wondering what one to get, I'd recommend this one. I think it's actually the paper it sent me. Oh yeah, there we go. It's not cheap, not gonna lie, it's not cheap. But, you know, I was fortunate enough that I was sent a preview copy, and I really, really appreciate it. It is completely revised and updated, which is great. It's very contemporary, so I don't know, especially if you are a self-taught knitter like I am, or if you've learned from YouTube videos, which a lot of us have. I think having a good reference of like the basics of knitting, the solid how to do things is really, and why you would do certain things is really good on here. So anyway, that's one of my favorite ones. And this is not a plug. This is just something that I honestly can say that when it comes to project bags for knitters, right behind me in this one is a box full of project bags. I have seasonal ones, I have great big ones for bigger projects, I have smaller ones for socks, all that sort of stuff. But the ones I seem to go back to time and again are the by the Lakeside bags. So I just wanted to show you them because if you haven't seen them, I highly recommend them. Larger size. I think that's the large size. Could be the medium. Sandy, correct me if I'm wrong. Smaller size. And I was really, really fortunate enough that Sandy, being such a doll, gave me one of her leather pouches as well. I would say the leather pouch has not really left my side since I was so lucky to have been given one. And there's her little label on the inside. It goes everywhere with me because it has all my tools in it. So, you know, I've got scissors and tape measures and notebooks and pens and blah, blah, blah. But the feel of it and the construction, the quality of all of them, guys, I don't know. I mean, if you don't know Sandy, Sandy has a fashion background, so I'm not surprised. But like, these things are amazing. They're so professional, and I love them, and they make me happy every time I use them. So they're my favorite things. The last thing I wanted to show you is not knitting related. So surprisingly enough, now that I have a kitchen worthy of cooking in, I've been doing a lot more cooking. So Little bit of backstory. After we sold our condo last year, we had to rent for a couple of months, about 6 months, while we waited for this place to be renovated. And the kitchen was terrible, and it was just sucked. It sucked. Because it wasn't my stuff. Half my kitchen was packed away. We only unpacked like the essentials. Now that I'm back into my full kitchen where I can actually cook properly, I have been. So, I have a fetish for cookbooks, which do not exist here. I actually built in a large cookbook shelf in my new kitchen, which someday, again, when I get it organized and stuff, it's unpacked, but it's just not organized. Once it's organized, I'll show you. But one of my favorite cookbooks that I picked up, and if you follow me on Instagram again, you'll see Magnolia Table. It's funny. I like to go through cookbooks when I get them, and I mark out all the recipes I want to make. This takes the record of the number of recipes that I wanted to make in it, and I will say I have made probably 3/4 of these already. I love them. It's not for the diet conscious by any means. There's a lot of butter and cream and cheese and cream cheese in a lot of the recipes, but it's so good. It's really, really good. If you need something that's warming, feeds a family, there's only 2 of us here, but what I do is I make the full recipe and I just put leftovers in the freezer. Like the green chili sour cream enchiladas, and it has green chilies in it, green enchilada sauce, made so much that I've had it now in the freezer for a couple of weeks, a month maybe, and I just pull it out when I need something to go with it, like just for a quick meal. But honestly, I'd say it's probably one of my favorite things that I received this year. I have a few more that I've gone through, and if you're interested, I'll pull out a couple more next time I record, but let me know if that's something you'd want to see a little more of. My Instagram feed is full of cooking these days because now I have a kitchen again, which I'm really, really happy to cook in. So that's another one of my favorite things. I said that almost like Oprah. I don't mean to do that. That's not cool. Sorry. So let's do this. I need to just take a quick sip of my coffee, and then I will show you some of the yarns that I picked up for specific projects, and then we'll just talk a bit more life stuff. Okay, so let's talk about some yarn that I bought for specific projects. Although, having said that, I did buy some skeins of yarn that are not for specific project yet. I had a project in mind, and I probably would still do that. So, first thing I wanted to show you was this amazing skein. This is Stormy Waters. I'm hoping the color comes out okay. I'm testing out this lighting here. It gets very sunny in this room after about 2 o'clock, so I want to make sure that I record before 2, because otherwise everything will blow out and you won't see anything. This is on her Bliss base, which is merino nylon, which would be perfect. Self-striping with a nice little mini for heels, cuffs, toes. And I am going to make socks for myself out of these because I love the colors. And now living by the lake, and the lake changes every single day. The colors change in the water, the weather changes, so I thought these are my perfect sort of welcome home socks. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make socks out of those for me. I bought also a sweaters quantity. This is Brooklyn Tweed in the Loft base, Almanac, and Fossil. And I am going to be making a sock monkey sweater by Jared Flood for my friend Tanya's son. As previously mentioned, I made her daughter the featherweight cardigan by Hannah Fettig, and now I'm going to make sock monkey. And he specifically requested a Toronto Maple Leafs colored sweater. So this will be the body, this will be the accent color, and so I've wound it all up. One word on winding loft: need to be a little careful when you're winding it on a hand winder. Most of the time you're fine, but there was one skein of the Almanac that just gave me trouble. It snapped 4 times as I was winding it, which was like a bit of a pain in the arse. But good thing with all wool is spit splice it, done. So that's what I did. I just spliced it, kept winding, and he's a small guy. Like he's I'd say average for his age. So I'm going to make one of the larger sizes of the sweater, but the sweater is actually loft held double. So, you know, it's going to be fine. It'll be pretty quick, but I want to get that done before school starts, which I have plenty of time to do because school doesn't start here till September. So that's the last of the project specific. Then Brooklyn Tweed also came out with their new line of fingering weight, which is, instead of being woolen spun like Loft is worsted spun. Very similar to their Arbor base, and I think Veil is also woolen spun or worsted spun. And I bought these 3 colors at the Knit Cafe here in Toronto. They only, when it came out, only had a small selection of colors, but they had released a pattern called the Lucerne hat, which uses, I think you can do it in 2, 3, 4, or 5 colors or something like that. And I wanted to, I kind of went through a whole huge hat making kick this past winter, and I still will, because when you don't have hair, you need hats, especially down here by the lake where the wind blows and it gets quite cold. So I bought, first color is Sea Glass and Admiral, which I love this color. This is a beautiful color. And the last one is Henge. And I have Henge in Arbor as well, that I bought for a project. I forget which one. So like I said, I'm trying not to just buy yarn for the sake of buying yarn. These, I will say, kind of sort of I bought because I wanted to try the base. But I've been so busy knitting other things, I haven't tried it yet. So I really think, you know, it's quite bouncy, which I really like. And it is sourced in Utah. Maybe help if I read it right side up. Sourced in Utah, Nevada, spun in Springvale, Maine, dyed in Saco, Maine, and I actually quite like it. You know, it's merino. It's not their other bases, which is their. Hang on, this is the other bag of all those. So Loft and Shelter are their Targhee Columbia, right? So this being merino, it's a little bit softer, a little bouncier. And yeah, I love the colors together. I think it'll be pretty to wear for me, and I'll have plenty to do, more than a few. So there's a little bit of controversy, I'm not going to lie, about the naming of it, and that, you know, Brooklyn Tweed's had some challenges lately around people sort of having different opinions about them, and I didn't really intend to speak on it. And I'm not really truly going to. All I'm going to say is make up your own minds, do the research, and if you choose not to buy from a particular company, don't buy from them. I wouldn't want to judge somebody for how they spend their money or what they want to work with. You know what? You know, judge not lest ye be judged, as they say. I'm not religious, but is that the saying? But I think that's, you know, for me, I'm going to continue buying their yarn. I really like the projects, I like the patterns, and yeah, so that's all I have to say about that. Anyway, so let's talk a little bit about rib news. I'm going to say that I want to talk about it, and then I'm going to give you sort of the warning about what I'm going to talk about afterwards as to my decisions why and what's gone on in life. So I'll give you sort of, I'll put up a black screen so you know when to fast forward. But I've made the very difficult decision not to publish a 4th issue of Rib magazine for a number of reasons. Some of which I'll go into in the next section, some of which I will maintain as personal choice. But I just need to say that, I'd like to thank everybody who participated, everyone who contributed, everyone who wrote, everyone who designed, who tech edited, purchased the magazine. There are still copies of issues 2 and 3 left to order, but I will not be producing a 4th issue in the same way. I may decide to do a different publishing route. I may decide to publish patterns later down the road. I've got some design ideas I'm working on. But as a magazine, as a full structured magazine, it won't be published in the same way. So let me give you your 2-second warning that if you're triggered by conversations around depression or any other challenging issues, fast forward to the next timestamp. Okay, so this is where stuff's going to get real here for a sec. All right, this might seem a bit disjointed because I recorded a whole section, triggered myself and got super emotional, and hopefully I can sort of maybe, let's go back and try that again. Because no one needs to see Eric, weepy. So I talked about the real estate transaction was probably, and they always say like moving, it's probably one of the, top 10 most stressful things you'll ever do. We did it twice in 6 months, on top of doing a full top to bottom renovation with a contractor who was unqualified, would be kind. But we got through it. It's done. It just literally finished on Thursday. Today is now Tuesday. The last pieces just got finally delivered and installed. So, phew, that's done. But I'm going to try and talk about this again because this one, it's not fresh, but it still hits really, really closely to home. So on top of my brother being very ill, my sister-in-law being very ill, my mom's health has never been great. And, sort of towards last fall, it started to deteriorate considerably. And before Christmas was challenging. After Christmas, they went to their place in Florida for a couple of months, and by the time she came back, her health had deteriorated pretty significantly. So I went and saw her. They arrived back on like a Wednesday or Thursday. I went to visit them on the Sunday. By Tuesday, she was in hospital. By the following, I think 3 days later, she was in a coma that they induced to try and sort of repair the lung and heart issues that were happening. She was out of the coma for about a week and a half. Unfortunately, during that time, I had developed a really significant flu, so I could not go and see her. By the time I got better, she was back in a coma, and on March 28th, she passed away. Which we've been preparing for a long time. But 35 years of history of health issues. 2 kidney transplants, a stroke, a open brain surgery for what was essentially an aneurysm that had to be repaired, and then this last incident as well. Like there's all kinds of stuff. It's a big long story, but nothing could ever really prepare you, I think, for the loss of a parent. And it threw me into a state where at first it was really easy to focus on what had to get done. Arrangements had to be made, people had to be notified, conversations had to be done. And of course my dad had fallen to pieces, which understandably. And my brother doesn't have the project management skills to sort of manage that, so I did that. And this is all while we literally were moving, trying to wrap up the renovation. My brother was still under treatment for cancer. My sister-in-law literally was discharged from hospital the day of the funeral. So it was a bit of a challenging time, and without even realizing it, the last couple of months, although, Instagram to the contrary, do not believe when everybody on Instagram posts pretty pictures. I can post a pretty picture pretty damn easily, but it doesn't mean everything behind the camera is just as rosy. Struggling with how to come back from that has been a bit of a daily challenge. It's been get out of bed, have a shower, get dressed, find a routine, find a new normal that at least can get me from point A to point B so that the world doesn't fall apart. And that's the best that I could do, right? And that's, I think, the best that anybody could really expect. During the time of sort of helping my dad clean out my mom's crafting supplies, of course, I inherit, the yarn, at least the yarn that was worth keeping. A lot of the stuff that was like baby cotton and stuff we donated. Stuff that was charity knitting that my mom did, we donated to her friends in her knitting circle, that sort of stuff. But I picked up the Drachenfels shawl that she was actually making for her best friend. There were all kinds of mistakes in it. Clearly she wasn't able to really focus on what she was doing, so I ripped it all back and redid it and remade it for her friend. and then made a second one for her other best friend, not her second best friend, but for her other friend. So that's what those two were that I showed you earlier. And it was nice to be able to do something to honor her memory for her friends. Yeah. Oh God, here we go again. Just breathe through it. Just breathe through it. So yeah, it's not been easy. It's been a difficult year. As a result of this, I've made some decisions around what I need to focus on, what my life needs to be about. What my life needs to be about right now is taking care of me first so I can be good and be present for others. Taking care of my house, which means taking care of Sebastian. Taking care of my dad and my brother and my family. Taking care of my business. And then everything after that, there's not much room, I'm not going to lie. The energy level that I have, the emotional and physical fortitude extends only so far. And so that's why I just do not have it in me at this time to do another issue of Rib. It's just the way it is. It's not anything that I don't regret making the decision. I regret having had to take the time to make that decision. It was not my intention to take this much time, but I'm human like everybody else, and stuff has to get done. And when you only have so much to do to get it done, things fall away. And frankly, you learn what's important and what isn't. And not that it's not important, but in the scale and scope of life, it was not as important, and it still isn't. What is important to me is my well-being, the well-being of the people I love, and taking care of those people around me. So, yeah. I'm going to post it in the hopes that if it helps anybody feel like they're not alone, that they are valued, and that they're contributing in whatever way that they can at that time, that's enough. And so I've just learned, you know what? It's enough. What I'm doing is enough. And if it's not for somebody else, that's okay. Change the channel. There's other things to do. More TVs to watch. There's more podcasts to watch. There's more YouTube channels to explore. That's fine. There are more knitting patterns to make than you could ever knit in your entire life. So not making another Rib magazine is not going to be life altering for anybody. That's just the way it is. So, on that note, so with all of that, and if you chose not to watch it, apologies if I'm looking a little flushed, but I just want to say thank you so much for watching. If this is your first time here, thank you for getting through to the end. If you are a long-time viewer, thank you for being patient and understanding. If you didn't watch the foregoing part, you may not understand why, but I'll just say thank you anyway. And yeah, so the next section is going to be just a little bit of video, myself and some other makers in the Fibre community up here in sort of southern Toronto, southern Ontario area, being interviewed at the Prince Edward County Fibre Festival. So I hope you enjoy, and we'll see you soon.
Welcome to FibreFest 2018! Woo!
Are you in on the panel?
We have podcasters here. They're willing to answer your questions of just about everything. Maybe. I'm Leslie, Rosehaven Yarn Shop. My husband Tim. We do the podcast Rosehaven on YouTube. And then we have Christopher from Cabin Boy Knits up in Sterling. Yay! So Christopher, I'm just going to pass the mic to you so you can introduce more so and tell us anything about you, what you got going on.
Okay. It's been a really busy year so far. Last week I was at a men's knitting retreat in upstate New York, and beautiful country. It's my 6th time. 42 guys, and it was wonderful. And then we had this show this week, and I've got a store coming online in September, and I also am going to have a fashion show in September in Picton, and I'll be got a couple pieces going in an art gallery as well. So it's going to be a busy year.
Wow. That is a
pass it over to Eric?
Yes, Eric.
Here we go. What do you want me to say?
Eric, tell us what's your podcast name.
So, my name is Eric. I am the host of the Sticks Plus Twine podcast. I have been a little quiet for the past year as there's been a lot of life changes happening, but it's all good. We're now in, I guess, the 1 year since I did one, but I'm actually taking footage today, so I will be having a new one come out soon. I've been knitting up a storm. We sold our place, we bought a new place, we renovated it top to bottom, had a few sort of personal things happen along the way, but we're back in the swing of the knitting.
Hi, I'm Sheila, and
Into the mic.
I'm Sheila. I'm from the Three Sisters Knit podcast on YouTube. I'm half of it. My other sister Margaret couldn't make it. We just started a podcast a couple of years ago. We podcast about every couple of weeks, and we just got into it after some life changes in our life as well. So that's what we do, and we love it. We enjoy it. It's fun. It's a great community.
Hi, I'm Diane. My sister and I also podcast. We are all at Fibre. She's not up here today. She's down at the booth of our vendors, and we're fairly new podcasters, and we're just having a blast doing it. So,
Awesome. Okay. Please pass the mic. Tim, do you want to say anything?
No.
No. He says no. Okay. With anyone, do you have any questions? Or are we just going to start throwing stuff? I have a few questions. Oh, look, we're gaining audience. Okay, I have a question for us. So, epic knit night. Who would you want at your epic knit night? Who would be like your favorite person to just sit down and gab and trade techniques with?
One person? Nancy Mershon would definitely be one. Yeah, she's my secret knitting girlfriend. So I think she'd be awesome. And I'll pass it along.
I have a couple. Can I have a couple?
Yes, you may.
First, I would say Elizabeth Zimmerman, because have to. I would say after that, Julie Hoover, because she's one of my favorite knitwear designers. And after that, I'd probably say Jared Flood, because I think his aesthetic is really cool. He's super shy, and I'd like to get him drunk.
I honestly have no idea. There's so many out there, I couldn't even choose. It's just so difficult. There's just so many amazing designers and people with techniques, and it's overwhelming to try to pick just a couple.
Yeah. Well, even someone just to hang out and talk to. Yeah. Just to gab, like another podcast.
Meryl Streep.
Yes. Okay.
I would love to knit with Meryl Streep. She does knit. Her and Julia Roberts. Yes. I'll go for the Hollywood crowd.
I really have no idea.
Really?
I don't know. Stephen West would be cool. I love the color. I love the designs. Yeah, he'd be cool to hang out with. So I guess I would say Stephen West.
Yeah.
I know they're having
Okay. Do you have someone, Tim, that you would have at your epic knit night?
For my epic, well, I think this is a good group right here to have. Yeah.
Nice politically correct. What do you do again? Oh, yes, a political cartoonist. Yes. I think I would like to meet Hohi Locatelli.
Oh, she's nice too.
She seems lovely and someone to hang out with. And Hollywood, I would probably Sarah Jessica Parker, because she seems pretty fun. And I know she's a knitter, so I'd probably do that.
Cool.
Okay, so here's the question I get asked all the time in the store. And it's always, everyone, we all got our different aesthetics. What are your favorite knitting needles? And do you specifically use the same brand for all your projects, or are there certain projects that you would prefer metal, wood, that kind of thing? I am addicted to my Haya Sharp set of all from 2.75 to 10s with 16-inch cables for all of them, so I can make hats out of anything I want.
I use at.I've for pretty much everything. And I started using them 4 years ago and haven't stopped, so I love them.
I change the needle depending on the type of project. So socks, I'll either use at.I've sock rockets or Haya Sharps. For sweaters, I like the at.I've flicks a lot. But almost anything else, I like my Haya interchangeables.
Mostly I do socks and shawls, so I have some Knitter's Pride. I have the cubits. I use those. I use the I use at.I've sock rockets for socks and stuff like that, but I also use the Lookout needles as well. If I'm using cotton, I prefer like a bamboo or a wood because then it doesn't slide right off. But other than that, generally it is a metal needle.
So you're not monogamous?
No, I'm not monogamous.
I like Knitter's Pride zines. I'm a zine girl, and those are my go-tos. I like flexi flips, the at.I've flexi flips. I tried those for socks. I really like those. And that's about my go-to.
Okay, cool. Okay.
And there's another needle that I just got to try, and it's called Prym, Prym, and they're triangular shape, and they're kind of plastic, and they almost have a funny little, not super pointed, but they were amazing. They're kind of an interesting shape needle, so if you get a chance to try them, definitely. Any questions from the audience?
I just bought these at.I've flips.
at.I've flips, we got some at.I've flips being purchased.
I'm excited to use them.
Nice.
I tested them.
For socks?
For socks. Any tips or anybody that knits with these? Do you like them?
at.I've flips tips? at.I've flip tips? I have used those. I prefer them on a vanilla sock, not one with a pattern. I found them very difficult with a pattern, especially if there's cables.
Okay.
I found them very difficult, but they're excellent for doing afterthought heels.
Well, and that's what I do.
Yeah, I found them very good for afterthought heels.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm excited to try them.
I love them.
For everything. Do you do anything other than socks, or is it mostly a sock?
Sleeves.
Sleeves.
I do sleeves on a sweater, top-down sweater. I did sleeves with them.
Okay.
Yeah, I really like them.
Awesome. And it's two, and the third one, like you're working on the two. Right, okay. Oh, this is great.
There you go.
I will not drop the mic, right? We're not going to drop the mic today. So, do you guys, who has a knitting challenge that they want to tackle this year? Tim? The newest knitter in the group?
Finishing anything. I have several projects that are taking far longer than they should. So yes.
That tends to be how knitting works, but eventually all of a sudden it's done. Like, look, done.
I've been dyeing yarn for a while now, and with natural dyes, and so I've been focused on a log cabin blanket, and it's going to be using all of the dyes all the yarn that I've dyed. So that's it.
It's very appropriate considering you live in a log cabin. I am trying to get rid of all of my sort of deep hibernation projects. I'm trying to get rid of them all, finish them, or frog them and do it for something else because I'm tired of having the stress of knowing there's an unfinished thing. So I'm working through it. I've got 6 of about 12 done already. So we're getting there. We're getting there.
I have a personal challenge for myself this year, and that's to knit myself a pair of socks every month. And I have been successful so far. And I've actually knit 7 pairs of socks already this year. Yes. So I'm ahead of schedule. Yes, but I have to. My sister and I in the podcast, I put 12 bags of skating yarn in each bag. Some of them have patterns, some of them don't, and they're stapled shut. And I did that last fall. And she, at the end of the month, sort of just picks a bag. So I don't even remember what I put in half of these bags, which makes it fun. So, and she just picks a bag, and that's the sock I work on that month. So, yeah, I'm glad I'm sort of ahead of schedule. I did one pair that was just my knit socks, just to keep a pair of socks on the needles all the time, and they had cables in that, and I finished them in March, near the end of March. I was so happy to have them done. But I love them, they're just gorgeous, so they're my favorite pair.
This year, my sister-in-law and I, we knit toques every year and donate them to charity. My cousin is a city bylaw officer for the city of Kingston, and he hands them out for us on his route. So our challenge this year is to reach 200 toques. So we're knitting toques like crazy. So that's our challenge this year.
Good. That's fantastic. Charity.
Now I completely forgot the next question. Yes. Any knitting technique that someone has either shown you or you've learned, and now it's like in your toolbox of go-tos and you use all the time? For me, I never blocked. I have learned to appreciate the block. Embrace the block. We block. Okay, I still don't do swatches. I will tell you to do swatches when you come to my store, but I don't. I know I'm a loose knitter, so it's like, yes, see? But blocking, because I did this sweater and all my little ribbing things were flipping up, and I was like, ugh. So I finished it, and I was immediately downstairs, sewed the buttons on and blocked it all in the same day. It was shocking, because I hate sewing buttons. Thanks, Mom. I know you're out there for always sewing buttons on all my projects.
For me, it's color-stranded knitting. With my left hand, I use continental, and my right hand, I throw. And it just feels much more comfortable for me. So, and that's what I use all the time.
Are you left-handed or are you right-handed?
I'm right-handed.
I actually learned how to do that too. During the Olympics, I was like, I got to do something, so figured that out. For me, I'd say the tip or technique that I picked up was from Patty Lyons, who always said after when you're switching between sort of a knit and a purl stitch, to make sure that you give the extra little tug when you switch, because it tightens up that stitch, all the extra sort of yarn that's there, so it's a lot more even. And it feels really weird when you do it. I saw Patty Lyons taught me how to do it. I think Stacy from Very Pink Knits says to do the same thing. So I'm like, well, they can't both be wrong. So I started doing that, and it made a huge difference. The knitting's just way more even now, especially when you're doing cables. So if you've got a cable on a purl field, it looks much, much, much better.
My favorite technique, I think, is from Susan B. Anderson, from her simple sock, her pattern. Is to add the waste yarn, do 3 rows, not just one, do the 3 rows. And I use that. I don't like her heel on that smooth opera. I myself don't like that heel, but I can still put in a different afterthought heel if I want by using that technique. So that's like my favorite technique that I've used all the time. So
I must confess, I've always been a really, really bad swatcher. I did not swatch anything. I was an anti-swatcher until this year. I knit a couple of sweaters, and after the first one, quickly learned that we're going to have to swatch.
Sorry, hon, I didn't mean to skip you. What new techniques did you learn?
Again, because I'm so new, it's really just fixing it yourself. You know, like learning what you did wrong and figuring out how to, even if it's going down a few rows and fixing it. Do it yourself.
And I appreciate that. Because there has been times I have a tendency to not stay up as late as Tim, and he'll come in the bedroom and I'm like trying to do my quiet time, and he's like, how did you, what's happening? Like, very stressful. And don't teach your spouse how to knit. Don't be taught by any family member. Find somebody else. Find a stranger in the library. Much better teachers. Much more patience to a stranger.
You're a great teacher.
Oh, sweet. Good answer, honey. So, what do we got coming up in the future for everybody? Tim and I are at Kawartha in 2 weeks. Kawartha Fibre and Yarn Festival, and apparently there's a new one coming up too in September that I hadn't even heard about, but Grenville? Is it Grenville? I don't remember. There's a card on my table, but yes, there are now fiber festivals like every month. There's one in Barrie in August. We're going to be at Twist in Quebec in August. But yeah, there's so many coming. And you have a fun thing happening on June 16th.
Yep. On June 16th, we've got it's called Wool Kiki at the Cabin, and it's basically bringing farmers, sheep farmers, alpaca farmers, knitters, dyers, spinners together to hang out for the afternoon and talk about wool and fiber. And we also have John Crane coming from Vermont, and he has fleece from 70 different breeds of sheep, and he will be, and we've got, he's not bringing the sheep.
I'm just imagining your house, all these lovely sheep on your lawn.
I don't think they'll get across the border, but yeah. And then the other event I just wanted to mention is in August 9th to 12th. So all the guys out there, listen up. There is a men's knitting retreat at my cabin, and Tim is going to be going. So I just came back from one last week, and it was great. This one's going to be epic. So really excited about it.
The only real plan I have for the rest of this year, I'm actually going to the Wool Kiki. So I'll be there for that. My plans have changed. FYI, I'm coming. And other than that, I'm going to Rhinebeck this year again. I think this might be the last one for a while because it's so expensive. So, this will be my 3rd year in a row. But it's so much fun. It's totally worth it. But we're doing it up big time. So, yeah. So that'll be later this year. And then other than that, I don't think we'll be doing a lot of wool sort of events. Now that we've just spent a year renovating our place, I kind of want to enjoy it. I don't want to go anywhere.
I'll be visiting the Kawartha one in Fenelon Falls, Yarn and Fibre Festival. I'll be going to that myself, and we're going to Rhinebeck as well. We had so much fun last year. It was so much fun. And then I'll be going to the Kawartha, the Kitchener-Waterloo Fibre Festival in September. Yeah, the KW in September. So it's basically Kawartha, KW, and Rhinebeck. That's it.
Well, we're going to be at Kawartha as well. We have a booth at Kawartha, and we have a couple of trunk shows in the fall planned, and some of those are kind of still in the works. And then this year we're going to Rhinebeck for the very first time. So I don't know if we're ready for what it's all about. But anyway, we'll learn as we go.
All right, I hope everyone, did you like it? Did you hear us out there? Yes? Yay! Well, thank you all for coming to Prince Edward County's Fibre Fest. We're going to do it next year, and we're even going to be a wee bit bigger. We're taking over another building. Bigger is better, right? More yarn? Always need more yarn. All right, thanks everybody. Have fun shopping, and keep on knitting.